Alright, let's get started. For my week 9 discipline reflection, I'm going to be going over the things I've done regarding mechanics, game mechanics, the overall systems functionality, which is the main thing that I've been doing for our group. Andrew and Roger, the other two programmers, have been doing other specific things, and for me, it's mainly been create systems that are in place and making the game function and connect multiple mechanics and regions of our game together. And the other two are making things that I'm going to be connecting. Along with that, I'm also making things that the game's using, such as puzzle mechanics and NPCs and enemies and yada yada yada. I'm going to be going over some of that now, and that'll be what I'm going to show off as my single thing. The reason it's a single thing is because my main job is doing a lot of little things, so I'm going to use this as my one thing I can cover. So if we go into the game, I'm going to start off showing some gameplay. This is an incomplete puzzle, but this is my puzzle scene where I'm putting mechanics to use to show off how they can be used in puzzles, and then we're going to mesh these out, detail them, and then put them into our main scene, in which the player can explore and have fun. So it looks like a lot of mess. There's a bunch of cylinders and boxes and whatever, but one mechanic we have is bowling. It seems kind of out of place, but trust me, makes sense. I'll see if I can get a win right off the bat. Nope, reset it. If I can't get it in 2 or 3 tries, we'll just go with it. Boop. Alright, bummer. But when you knock the pins down, they check, hey, am I knocked down or not? And then they'll add themselves to a score tally. If they're all knocked down, you win, you get a trophy. And then that will fire a puzzle event, a mechanic event. In Unity, an event, when sent, can do anything. You can have multiple other interactions, mechanics, puzzles, anything you want, looking for that particular event. And if that event is fired, then they do something. So for bowling, for example, if I succeed in bowling, the bowling will fire off an event, and it will put in the ability for me to climb this block out right here. So for example, I cannot get up here until I beat that first little bowling thing. And then up there I'd have another bowling thing, and then there'd be a lane over there where you have to boost through and hit the pins on the other side, which aren't spawned because I didn't beat the one over there, and yada yada yada. So that's one example of a mechanic that I'm using to further the puzzle. You have to hit the bowling pins down and succeed. Another example would be over here. We have a little obstacle course set up, and you explore around, you hit this button, boop. I'm going to ignore it's a little hard to show when I'm in the editor, and I didn't make like little admin controls to speed this up. I'm going to just move myself forward to make this much easier. You think you're all ready, you start the video, and then bamf, you have to do a little bit more setup. But that is okay. Yeah, I'll show this one off. The goal of the puzzle is to use a small amount of space and let the player run through it multiple times so that they're able to get more fun, get more usage out of a smaller area and less assets. That way we can have a more robust game without as much in it. There's a cage behind there. I started a timer. The goal is to find the key to unlock this. Normally you'd start at the bottom, but I started at the very top, in which I'd have to jump down and then do this again and go up here. In there would be a secret. Shh, don't tell anybody. You go down here. And this platform is here because I hit that timer. And I messed it up. So, because I hit the timer, these platforms appeared. There's a key. I would jump across the gaps, get the key, and then you can carry the key. Player can carry objects, you walk over to the lock, you put the key in the lock, you get the cage, and then each of these cages would do something in the town that we have in the main scene, and that would be the goal of the game. You rescue all the little clay people, and you're all set. Alright, so that was kind of a mess presentation, but anyway, these are all puzzle mechanics. So this is a ball, you walk up to it, you push it. Another puzzle mechanic. Each of these mechanics, when put together, will interact with one another. They'll fire events, other mechanics will look for specific events to make the puzzle feel like a puzzle, to make the game feel like a game. This ball, for example, it's not just a ball, it's a key. Here's a key object script on it. That lets the game know that this is a key object. The key object can be used by things that utilize key objects. This zone right here, which is just an entry zone, it'll look for whatever falls into it, has a puzzle button mechanic on it. Now, it doesn't look like a button because it isn't a button, but in terms of mechanics, it is a button. It has a script on it, and the button is set to key, so it's looking for a key. And I have a specific object selected, and I told it, hey, look for the key sphere, or this push ball. So if you push the ball all the way around, you get into the area, this ball will touch the button, and then the button will be activated because it had the key in it. Another example of a button would be over here, where I first started. I pushed this button, called slam button, and I just named it that to help me know what it is before clicking on it, but when you click on it, you see that it has the same script, puzzle button script, but my button type is slam. When you do a slam button, you can say, hey, do I have a timer? And if I check it, then a timer appears, like I'm able to use a timer. So if I uncheck it, it doesn't use a timer. So when I hit the button, no time will start, and only things that are looking for this particular button will activate. But if I say I have a timer, and then I input the timer object into it, it will utilize the timer. It'll turn the timer on, and then that timer will be what other objects will utilize. If I click on the timer, I can show you. Timer. I put little tutorials so my group can read and figure out what the things do. But the timer, you select what type of timer. For the bowling, it has a different kind of usage, but you tell the timer, hey, what button are you tied to? So it's listening for events fired off by that particular button, and then how much time do you have? So the timer will fire off, and it will display on your screen letterboxing. If we go through with that in the future, it'll show the timer, the little icon spinning, and then when it runs out, it'll fire off an event, hey, I ran out. When you get the key, which is literally a key, if I click on the key, Grumble, man. Oh, it's right here. Boop. If I click on the key, I collapse all things that don't matter. Wah. There. It has pick-upable on it, so you can pick it up, and it has a key object on it, which is the same as was on the push ball over here. That means it's a key object, and it can be recognized by anything that utilizes a key object, such as this lock switch, which is a button. Button type, lock switch. It looks for a key object. As you can see, a lot of this is reusable and interchangeable. Yes, I can have the push ball roll into the puzzle button lock switch, which utilizes a key object. I can tell it, hey, that ball is your key, but that wouldn't make any sense, and I wouldn't recommend doing that. It would confuse the player, yada yada. Lastly, I want to just point out that with Rogers hazards, we can incorporate spawning objects, which is a feature of the buttons. You can have them spawn objects and tie that event to making things appear, and I can make platforms appear. And with the platforms, you can make not only platforms, but hazards. So I can have these falling platforms that would normally not be here until you hit that button appear, and then all of a sudden these scissors are a hazard. Because the goal of the game in this puzzle environment is to get up to the top. So you're not only trying to find a way to activate the platform so you can get up to the top, you're finding a way to avoid all hazards and survive while getting up to the top, when previously you thought all you had to do was hit the button. You can make anything appear with that. Everything in the game so far has been interchangeable, and that's the major thing that I've been working on for this whole time. But on top of all that, it wouldn't be possible to easily implement all these interactions together without clear and concise instructions for whoever's using them. Especially me, I had to make them easy to use for myself because I had to do this a lot over and over and over again. So we have a custom inspector, which is the final thing I want to show off. Our custom inspector has big green text showing you each section, and it has buttons set up to input certain variables and functions that I have set up to work in the code already, but it's as easy to understand as possible in the inspector itself. So here's a gate. If you open or push a button or open the gate using a switch, like this lock switch next to it, the gate will receive that event and open. So since the gate only opens, there's limited functionality for what it can do. And I have it displayed here. If you have a timer, you can have the gate open on a timer, or close when the timer runs out, or you can turn the timer off and give it a specific button. Now, the gate's open or closed, so that's all a gate does. So when you scroll the gate down, you can say, hey, this is the open position. So I say, hey gate, this is now where you are open. And when I scroll the gate back up, that's where it will start when I turn the game on. So when I tell the gate, hey, open, via button or timer, the gate will shift down to its open position that I've set using the custom inspector. Now this is a very simple inspector. A more complicated one, say, it would be in the cutscene. Here's a script manager from my cutscene over here, which is, ooh, that's not very helpful. Whatever. I have a cutscene generically in the area just for reference, but my script state manager has a big tutorial because you would need to know how it works. It's very complicated in itself. You can add cameras using the inspector, and each camera is how the cutscene functions. It runs from one camera to the other. Every time I add a camera, it adds another duration below because they're tied to the camera directly. And I'm going to remove those. So I have one camera right now and one duration. I just realized my mouse wasn't on for this entire video, but that's fine. You can look off to the side, on the very right side of the screen. Cutscene components are anything that the cutscene utilizes and moves. Each component would have cutscene component attached to it, so it knows what to do for that particular cutscene. And down below we have cutscene audio and additional objects. Additional objects are things that just spawn during a cutscene or turn off during a cutscene. Again, you'd have a component for that. Then you have options for, hey, are you using a trigger box? Hey, are you using a puzzle button for this particular cutscene? Yada yada yada. And it's all detailed on the side, and it's clear and concise a method as possible. Otherwise, you'd have to go into the code and you'd have to attach all these things in there, and it wouldn't be as easy to use. So that's what I've been doing: system mechanic, connections, and functionality. So I'm going to just quickly go into JIRA. Here's our current sprint. I so far have only started working on a few things and completed one thing, but if I shouldn't actually fiddle around with this because I'm not exactly sure how to get to completed things, but off to the side here where it shows how much has been completed in each section. A lot of these sections like large enemy, aerial enemy, small enemy, NPC AI, camera, HUD, collectibles, puzzles, game mechanics. A lot of them are showing like, you know, high states of completion, and that's because I've been going through and completing all this stuff, so our game has a lot in it. I guess it should be sufficient enough right now as proof as to what I've been doing. What else did we want to go over? Show off Inspector, show off Game Systems, show off JIRA. I contribute to the project. I connect everything together. I went over that. How I've improved. I've never done custom inspector stuff before, and it's really unique and interesting. I like it a lot. I've never done NPC interactions before. I have NPCs interacting with not only the player via the dialogue and the waving at the player and being able to interact by talking to them, but they interact with each other, and they're going to be interacting with the environment. I didn't complete that yet. I've never done dialogue before like that, where I have a box pop up and text appear inside of it. I've never done enemy AI before, where they'll run over to you and attack you and utilize a nav mesh. And speaking of which, I've never done nav meshes before. I've never done Unity event delegates before. I've done delegates, but I've never used Unity events to have a thing fire off an event and have infinite other things see that and react to it. I've never gone in depth with puzzles. I've only done very simple things from the associate degree. I've never fiddled with a complicated camera before, even though I mostly failed on this front, but the camera does work. It collides with walls and zooms in and out and rotates from the player and bounces when the player jumps and all sorts of things like that. I've never done positional checking in regions on the map where I say, hey, NPC, walk around this area, but make sure you avoid all objects in the area when you're walking around the area. That I'm using the nav mesh, but it's a mesh system. It has nothing to do with the nav mesh itself for how that works. I'm just pointing to them to go to a certain spot, and it only works for spots that are currently available on the map. And then I've never done in-depth blockouts, so we're planning our level out in a more detailed way than I've ever done before, and that's what I've been learning and how I've improved so far on our project. Even while I was writing this list, I forgot stuff, I'm sure. There's a lot more I've done. But for now, that should be good. I'm going to hit stop.